Thanks, then I'll just start the recording now. Yeah, so can you just say a few more words around your distinction between navigating and weaving and what your idea is of weaving?
Yes. Can you hear me? I have my headset.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought you were listening. Cool.
Yeah.
So the question was, can you speak more to the distinction between navigating and weaving and what weaving means in general to you?
Yeah, okay, sure. So weaving is connecting all the people who does similar work. Bertola and I refer to the principle of bonding, bridging, and linking as a building social capital, really. So bonding is making deep connections with friends, so they're part of your 150 people tribe, and the people you know closely or fairly close as well, if you're familiar with Keegan's work about the number of close and distant connections you can have. Yeah. You can have a lot more than 150 people. Bertola is certainly his extended bonding tribe is certainly maybe 1,500 people or something like that if you really work on it. But yeah, and then you have the bridging. That's how you connect different people and initiatives that works in the same or similar field that can learn from each other. So there's a learning opportunity when you bridge things. That's the main goal, if there's a learning opportunity or a connection opportunity for bridging people. And then you have the linking, that is people who have all kinds of, we call them enablers, that they have power or leverage or money or influence or a vast network that is the balance between the two people is that the one person has a lot more of some things that there is an enabled for what is needed. So if you're a famous or a powerful person with a lot of influence and power and money, you could do linking towards them because you have to give them something for them to actually have a relationship with you. And that's the tricky part all over the world. Many people would want to do this but don't know how, and even the people who do now and need something doesn't always get the right connections in this linking part of weaving. So.
Okay, and then what is navigating for you?
Navigating is we have listened for a long time. We started using the word actually 7 years ago. Me and Bertola, you can see the early post on us. How do you navigate that? But we listen to a lot of talks all over the world, and every once in a while people mention how do you use the word navigate that, and everywhere. And we said if there is an activity called navigating, there must be a person doing and be a navigator as well. So we started exploring what could it mean. Is it exploring known territory? Is it exploring unknown territory? Or like we say, something in between. So making sense of the world. In essence, like in Sweden, we have a word for that called omvärldsbevakning, but there's no great, I don't know if there's the German word for that. There's no great English word. Business intelligence is not the word we're looking for that usually translated with. So, but part of that is like going out in the world, being curious and look for all kinds of opportunities, opportunity weaving, we can call it also well, but learning and opportunities is very related to the activity of navigating the world. So. And some people some people think that everyone should do this, but we are under the theory that I need to be a new role in society, because society today is so complex. There's so many products, services, innovation, knowledge, science, everywhere that it's way more than a full-time job to keep up with what's going on in the world. So if it's way more, then we have to have at least some people doing it full-time, but we don't actually employ navigators today in the true essence of a navigator or a weaver. And we said that every organization, institution needs a whole staff of navigators and weavers to keep up with what's going on in the world. But some people say we should leave that to AI, but then what do we humans become? Just slaves to the AI? We know nothing and they know everything now. So we don't say that because me and Bertola has been doing it full time for 10 years, mostly unemployed, and doing it because we recognize it's needed, and it's since we've been doing it full time for 10 years almost, we can see the need for this and see that this is more than a full-time job to do this. So if any questions about the explanation?
No, I think the explanation makes sense, and it resonates a lot with what we are considering in our research, because we are obviously focused on this topic of sustainability, and we come from this systems perspective, understanding that sustainability is such a complex and wicked problem that it requires exactly what you say about navigating, people who understand the different parts of the system and the dynamics of the system, and then the relationships, and work on those relationships to help the whole system advance towards this more sustainable state that we're all kind of desiring, but not really in a coordinated way working towards. So I think it resonates a lot. And when I show you a couple of things on our Miro board in a second, maybe you'll also recognize some of the things. But could you, I don't know. I think
one thing we also use when we tell people that's not in this field at all is that most people have watched the Game of Thrones, and in Game of Thrones, they in every citadel and town they have a guy called a maester. That's a known knowledgeable person that knows a lot about the world and things like that. So like we want that the navigator is the modern version of the maester, but it's not just one person in every city. It's a whole staff of an office and an institution in every city, and this institution is connected to every other institution on the world. So it's a global network of weavers and navigators that is the modern version of the maester in Game of Thrones, if you watch that.
Nice. Yeah. Do you also see linkages to the role that elders had in traditional communities?
Yeah, like the village elder, the wisdom bearer in a tribe. We don't have that role in society today. Today we just fire our old people when they come the age of becoming fairly wise. We just fire them and let them go of the work market or anything. So
yeah, and then work with Wikipedia as our main source of wisdom.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's an interesting perspective on society. Can you give, do you have like a practical example from your work where this distinction between weaving and navigating maybe also becomes apparent? Just to give a bit more context to what you're saying.
Yeah. For my if I used to be a very shy person, so I never talked to people. But so I never did the weaving part. I never talked to people, but I still studied up on tried to make sense of what's going on in a lot of fields. I was a computer programmer. I run an esports cafe and a board game cafe. So I was a computer geek and a gaming geek, a sci-fi geek and everything. So I know a lot about the sci-fi world and everything. So I was navigating the geek world, I would say, but I didn't know anyone globally. So I didn't do any kind of weaving at all, mostly. So that's the distinction, if you know what I mean. I know, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And in your present day work, do you work a lot with sustainability problems as well, and the navigating weaving in that, or is it scattered all over
for my part
and everything?
Yeah, me, Bertola, and a friend of ours, Carl McFall, we came up with a model. So we wanted to give people a basic map for how do you navigate the world, how do you make sense of the world. So we came up with a fairly complex model for that, but I spent the last 3 years building an explanation model for that, so you can know why you need to do the basic four activities that we call as part of weaving and navigating. So our model is entitled in 4. I'll share a link.
Yes, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll find it there very soon. Let's see. I think it used to be on my LinkedIn, I guess. It's not, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, but I'll find a link while I talk here. So the basic activities is what we call eventification, journeyfication, amplification, and unification. that you need to do in an institution or organization. So eventification is making better events that is an opportunity for learning mostly, and connection and weaving. So we all been to the bad events, the boring events, but we also been to the best events that we've been to, and there's a scale between a bad and boring event and a good and a magical event. So we want to take the learning of how do you make better events, because events takes time, that takes energy, and they consume a lot of resources and things like that. So why waste time on bad events? So that's eventification, is to make better events, especially in a field like this. And journification is part of the learning of the individual and the learning of an organization and society in itself. So this is part of a model called the Learning Society that we in Bertola and Eva-Lena and otherwise is part of as well. So how do we facilitate learning, better learning everywhere, in individuals and organizations and the society as a whole? And for amplification is part of a society that is what we call basically narrative driven. There's a lot of stories, and in every story there's tidbits of meaning and patterns, and these we call narratives. So there's a lot of narrative going on in society, a lot of bad narratives. You can see a lot of the events in the world today, in the US and Russia, Ukraine and things like that. There's a lot of things going on driven by bad narratives. But there is also, like the work we do in sustainability fields, there's a lot of good narratives about how do you treat the earth and soil and nature and everything, and these are good narratives. And the strategy then is how do you amplify the good narratives and suppress the bad narratives and make people realize most people don't even know what the narrative is. They think it's just a story, and people consume stories on Netflix on a daily basis without ever questioning themselves, what do they learn from every story and things like that. So amplification strategies are a realization and being aware of narratives and amplifying the good narratives in society. And then we have the unification part. This is mostly the weaving. How do you connect every initiative that is good, every organization, every people? So it's a lot of weaving practices when you unify different projects and things like that. So these are the 4 strategies in our model that we said that every organization and society and nation state should have this in practice with this framework in mind. But so few people actually do. If they're lucky, they do 1 or 2 of these, but never on a strategic level. But to understand that as well, I've spent 3 years now developing an explanation model. What is a narrative? What is learning? What is society? Most people think society runs on money. Money is what I would say a token-based narrative that makes people do things, but money doesn't do anything on its own. You can say, if you want to build a base on the moon, you can sell a couple of $1 billion there in bags and see what's happened. It's nothing going to happen. Money doesn't do anything by itself. Humans and energy, fossil-based energy do most of the works, and they're driven by narrative like money, but they're driven with so many more narratives than money as well. So an explanation model, how society actually works. And when people say, if we're going to do this, it's going to cost this much money. Money is never a true cost. It's going to cost resources. It's going to cost human labor. It's going to cost energy. It's going to cost knowledge and things like that, but never money. Money is just a transformation token for getting access to all the other things you actually need for a project or something to happen. So.
This model sounds really interesting. If you find the link, it would be perfect. I think we could take a look at that too. From what you're saying, it already makes a lot of sense. I have
an old blog. I'll send that for you now. I'm writing a couple of new ones, but nothing is official yet because I have been so much prototyping around it for now. Let's see.
Yeah, that sounds really
also
cool.
Half of the blog is my personal model called Ikigai 4.0, also for personal navigation of life. So, but there's some part there's an explanation of our future navigation model as well in it. So.
Very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
We'll take a closer look at that too. Maybe a brief follow-up question before I'm going to show you some things that we found. Since when have you been working with this word weaving?
I just came in contact the world weaving itself. We met Ross Hall 2017, me and Bertola. So then when we started talking about weaving, before that we called it building social capital or bonding, bridging, linking. So
right. And then I'm sorry, maybe a follow-up. I'm intrigued by that. Why did you pick up on that word? Like, why did it resonate?
Because it felt like when we met Ross, he was actually describing Bertola. So
Right.
in the essence of what Bertola have been doing around the clock for 15 years now. So
Wow. Okay. And why do you feel it resonated more than building social capital, for example, or the other words that you mentioned?
You can use both, but weaving is a simple word, so it describes an activity, and then there must be an agent doing the weaving itself, the weaver.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, great. Interesting how everything links again. And yeah, we've heard that story a lot, that people said, I always did it, but when I was introduced to the word of weaving, it gave me this word for what I was already considering to be part of my identity and part of my work for the past 40 years or something. So that's cool. Good confirmation. If you like, I can show you a couple of things that we found in our research, and then we can discuss a bit.
Yeah.
We did some literature review, obviously, and then we also talked to a lot of experts. And we found, so this is your article. So we've done a consolidation on a definition of weaving and the different dimensions, but also a list of practices. And I think this is interesting, and I'd be curious to discuss how that links to your model and your understanding of weaving and navigating. But what we found was that there's kind of five big themes of activities or practices that a weaver does. And we've outlined them here a bit.
I only see a black screen right now.
You see a black screen? That is weird. Sorry, I'm just going to start sharing again. Oh, yeah. Sorry, so that should
there you
be
go.
better.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. So, yeah, as I said, we have like 5 weaving practices that we've distilled. And I'm just going to run through them briefly so you get an idea. The first one is about cultivating trust-based relationships. I think that's also what you talked about. It's about strategically connecting people for mutual benefit and cultivating the meaningful relationships that are based on trust in society. Then it's about aligning on a shared purpose and a shared vision. So weavers help initiatives to co-create and bring together all those different perspectives that come with the individuals that join those initiatives, and make a coherent and shared narrative around what they are trying to aim for and working towards. Then on the other side here, we have this learning aspect that you also mentioned about facilitating collective learning or also unlearning. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts about unlearning as well. So it's really the idea of co-producing knowledge and bringing together different knowledge systems. We've been talking about indigenous communities as well, and tribes, and how their knowledge systems are so fundamentally different from what we know in modern science, and how to bring those together without hurting the integrity of those knowledge systems. So it's this whole theme around learning together. And then we have another one on fostering experimental action. So creating spaces, safe spaces for new ideas to emerge and then to be tested and to, be run in iterative cycles in experimentation, learning, adapting, learning again, and so co-creating new ideas. And then this last part is also sounded familiar when you were speaking, is this idea of helping systems see and sense itself or themselves. So basically do the mapping, the systems mapping, the network analysis, and facilitate processes so that the whole system understands what we're dealing with. and what the parts and relationships are. And then the idea is that all of this happens in synergistic and purposeful ways, and across different levels. And I'm just going to scroll up here, because we've come up with this working definition of weaving, which would define weaving as the practice of cultivating synergistic and purposeful relationships within and across socio-ecological systems, because the idea is that it's not only like weaving is not only happening on a horizontal level, but we have to see the world in holonic systems, so nested systems and systems and systems. And then weaving happens both vertically and horizontally and across different scales. So in the case of the Bioregion Weaving Lab, who we're working with, it's, you're connecting different people, but you're also connecting people to communities and communities among each other. And then you're connecting communities to different bioregions and bioregions between each other. And so it becomes this holonic structure of interwoven fabric that becomes tighter and tighter and more resilient over time. And that's really the work of the weaver in essence. So this is like a glimpse of what we've looked at and what we've found, but it's kind of also the essence and the key parts. So I'm curious to understand what you think about this, and if you have any, criticism or any other opinions, anything that resonates a lot. Yeah, just your thoughts maybe.
Yeah, it looks like a model of or map you can actually use and make sense of when you do things. So you define this, it's 5 activities, this light blue circles. So yeah. So that looks fairly in sync with our thinking and learning on our model. Yeah. So.
Do you think it's missing anything major?
Yeah, well, what we told about, there's all this, but we facilitating long-time learning and the the importance of events, really. So from daily events to yearly events like this, in essence, to this. And there's also a big problem with events in itself. Many of us has gone to good events like conferences and meetings, but they're standalone events, so they don't connect back to your community or organization after an event. So there's maybe a little learning for the participant, but there's no learning for the organization that the participant is part of afterwards. There's no momentum. So that's a lot of, we work with a model we call a playground for an event. So like, how do you facilitate learning and action over time after, before, during, and after an event as well. So that's a strategy we have inside Eventification. So that is where we see that the lacking everywhere. We especially here. We studied a lot of Sweden, of course, but a lot of people go to an event and then you come back to your workplace and people there are not in your mind. They don't know what you're talking about, and nothing, the learning that took place on an event doesn't happen in the organization they come back and work in, because there's no connection. There is no strategy for that change to happen as well, that learning is.
Good points. I've taken a note here, and we've got the recording to get back to that.
Yeah.
Really cool. Anything else that stands out to you? I think I have 2 more questions, but yeah, just to.
No, I can't. There's a lot to take in here, but
yeah,
it makes sense. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, I mean, speaking of a lot to take in, I think we'll be more than happy to share our results once we finalized it a bit and put it into text and into understandable formats. So yeah, happy to share. I think I have 2 questions, and then I want to hand it over to Sally and Tyne as well to see if they have any further points. But one thing that we came across a lot when talking to people who either do weaving or work with weavers themselves is that this idea of the narrative is super important. You know, this word weaving already already embraces very natural processes. You know, you know the word weaving from the actual handcraft of weaving, but you also know it from nature. You know, mycelium networks are also kind of doing the same, and like there's all those analogies to natural processes and to a very grounded narrative that is all around it, which is also why I was asking earlier about building social capital, which is to me a bit more mechanistic, or a bit more, you know, it has less of this emotional aspect to it.
More academic sounding
exactly
words. Actually Batola comes from academy. He worked there for 7 years before he got too tired of just that part of it, the very dry academic wording, and now no action and learning actually took place. They just did their introvert study of things. Like,
so would you say that this narrative and where the word comes from and all those, you know, the associations that come with it are important to the concept itself, and that's why it's so unique, maybe?
Like you can see that I'm super interested in different kinds of flow states and flow, what that does to a community or a person when in a flow state, and the learning and the weaving that takes place when in flow as well. So that's part of some of the best events we go to. People easily go into all kinds of different flow states and get goosebumps and transformative experiences and things like that, and that connects back to like the learning and the weaving that take place in an event like that when you're in a very good mood or flow states as well. So that's also something that takes into account when we talks about the importance of eventification, that invoking different kinds of flow states in people as well. So
great. Yeah, cool.
And when you really get that, like you know, of Burning Man, the festival, or the different kinds of burns, many people who go to these events, they're so magical because they're in usually all kinds of deep and shallow flow states. It's you familiar with flow and flow states at all?
Yeah. Well, not as an expert, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. So when flow states is when you just lose sense of time and you're just doing things. But there are two kinds of flow states. There's the low energy flow state. That's when you just sit watching or study or talking about something. You go into this low energy flow state. Your pulse is low, but then you have the high energy flow state that you get when you do a sports or raving or hunting or like all kinds of extreme sports. You have the pulse is high and your blood is pumping, and you can make split-second decisions that you don't know where they came from. That's what we call high energy flow states. And in a good like conference and event, you can tap into that by having a good dancing session or some kind of physical exercise during a day, or a lunch beat or something like that. That could get people into the high energy flow states as well. That connects back to the rest of the event when you're in a low energy flow state as well. So.
Yeah, cool. That makes so much sense. And also how it links to weaving, you know, how.
Yeah, because people, you do this kinds of, when you go into high energy flow state together with people, you bond with them much more deeply. You can actually make friends for life just from a single event when you go into both the low and the high energy flow state together with people, and that's essential for the building the networks and the weaving of the people that you love and trust across the world. So, and that's also many like you say, boring events where you don't go into any kind of flow state at all. You have like professional business relationship with these people, but you never really bonded. So you don't have that trust, the global trust that we need. So that's where you also advocate for better types of event where you put people in all kinds of flow states.
Yeah. Super fascinating. And the question that comes to my mind is how is that changing in the online environment now that we've experienced during the pandemic? But I think that's a whole nother topic of how do you create events and flow states in online environments.
Yeah, we actually experiment with an exercise that we call Glass Big Game. That is a collective sense-making, meaning-making exercise we do once or twice a week during the pandemic online in Zoom, and we actually put people in almost every time, or many of the participants go into what we call a fourth level of listening and a fourth level of dialogue that Otto Scharmer talks about, the generative dialogue. And we consistently put people in this state. I've done circling, empathic talks and everything in that, but that seldom goes to the fourth level. But the Glassbead Games is the name of the workshop. We've been prototyping that for 2 years now, and we consistently put people in this fourth level of just listening, and that also builds like flow and digital and trust on a digital level. So that's something else. If you want to experience that, we do it every Sunday. We did one fantastic session last night on time. So
wow, yeah, if you could share the link maybe to that as well.
Yeah, sure.
We'll look into that.
We do every Sunday on Zoom, so you're welcome that. And we can actually do a special Glassbead game with you on just weaving. We haven't done weaving as a topic. Every time you choose a topic, so we're glad. So if you collect some people in the Zoom time, I can do just a demonstration Glassbead game for you on the topic of weaving.
Yeah, wow, that sounds fascinating. I mean, particularly this week, we're quite busy with writing because we have deadlines, but I guess in the coming weeks, I think it will be super fascinating to experience that, what you're working on there. Yeah, so please send it over, and then we'll talk to the rest of the team. And yeah, super cool.
I put it here, and I put it on. I'll message you on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, great, thanks. Cool. Yeah, so looking at the time, maybe I have a brief question at the end, and then
I can actually do I can do 15 more minutes if it's
okay.
If you
cool. Yeah,
something special. Yeah,
cool. Yeah, so I guess my last big question would be, we found that, you know, while engaging with all of this, we found that there's a lot of overlaps with other kind of concepts that are very similar. None of them combine all of these things as much as weaving does, but we were wondering really, what is it that makes weaving so unique? Like, why is it maybe more than just a new buzzword that is, you know, spreaded everywhere? And yeah, in the end, it's really just the same as regenerative leadership, which is also a buzzword, or, you know, multi-stakeholder processes where you bring people together, or building social capital, as you said. Like, what is unique about weaving?
I guess if you want to go that route of like, there's a certain kind of shimmer or magic attached to the process. So there's a deeper human understanding of putting people into flow, and that's that attachment to weaving is like for the more academic description of the word, I guess. So that's something you can keep in mind. And please find, if you want to do an exercise like the Glassbead Games, really put you into new insights about what meaning could mean. So please find the time and get people together so we can do this. And I will happily, I can almost promise you that you will get new insights about what weaving actually mean when we do this exercise together. So
sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited now. I don't know, Sally, Tyne, how are you guys feeling? And is there anything on your mind that we still want to ask, inquire about?
Yeah, Tyne, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, sorry, I was not on my camera, but I'm trying to save some battery because otherwise my train tickets disappear. Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of ground already, and maybe one thing that's always on my mind, or like weaving is awesome, or like maybe we can conclude that weaving is awesome, but what are maybe barriers towards weaving, or what are things that could hinder weaving? Yeah, because I can also imagine weaving is not. It can also be quite difficult, or like maybe so maybe the question is what are some barriers you face when weaving, or what do you think are what makes weaving difficult?
Yeah, like the main obstacle is, of course, a world built on the narrative of money and transaction, that everything is a transaction. I buy this, I pay for things, and if I haven't bought this service or things like you, no transaction taking place. And so a transaction-based, money-based world is a great obstacle to a world where like weaving is a part of a natural value creation for a local or global community. But like we experience, many people don't actually pay for it in today's world. Most of the work me and Bertola have been doing has been for free, because you don't pay for a single event of weaving, like it's some kind of transaction. I buy 1 hour of weaving from you or something like that, because this is something deeper human. And in a transaction-based world, it's hard to understand the value of this and why we need people doing this, navigating and weaving full time everywhere. But you don't buy an hour of weaving from them per se. So many people come to me, but mostly Bertola, and asking for help in weaving and expecting it to be free. but of course, you can't pay for it in that essence either. But people like me and Bertola, we like need a full-time employment in an institution organization doing this, so that we can provide our service for free as a public servant or something like that. So that's a main obstacle, because there's a need of a lot more weavers and navigators in the world, but in a transaction-based world, it's hard to see how does this fit into budget. Do we get our money back when we employ a weaver or something like that?
And is it a way to bridge it, or now Ross was also talking about more and more people see or start seeing weaving as a profession, or that could be like a bridge from the old world to the new world, or that somehow you can also start earning a salary for weaving, or do you think that would be or would that be going against the whole point of weaving, that it's not transactional and you should never
yeah, exactly, like it should always be deep and personal. So there's a mismatch there of the need for this and the actual people having time and an incentive to pursue a life of full-time weaving and navigating. So for me it's a call. For me it's a calling, so I'll do this regardless. Yeah.
So somehow we need to shift the narrative.
Yeah, we certainly do.
Yeah. Thanks. Sally, do you have remaining questions?
I mean, maybe following this point, I'm interested to know if you have ever tried to get in touch with politicians or governmental institutions and propose your idea.
Yeah, I've been pitching this everywhere, but it's hard to people to actually understand what it is and the need for it as well. So, but I've been spent the most 2 years on Zoom and Clubhouse now, talking to as many people as I can, explaining the need for this. So.
Yeah.
How would you say do you become a weaver? Like let's just say Sally, as a recent graduate from university, would love to pursue this calling as a weaver. How would you get started?
You hang with other weavers. That's the best way to do the things you think is impossible is to hang around the people already doing it. So that's how I learned. I started hanging with Bertola, and then I understand instantly what it's. I saw some magic in what Bertola was doing instantly, and I started hanging with him more over the years. And in 2015-16, we decided to do this together, go to events and just do this everywhere in the world. So.
Nice.
That's cool.
Can I hang around with you guys?
Yeah. So join our Glassbead Game Zoom calls. There's a lot of people doing sense making there together.
Definitely. That's very interesting. And thank you, Leon, for asking the question.
I'm curious as well. Yeah. Cool. Maybe is there anything else you would like to let us know, or anything that comes to mind?
I think I said enough. A lot
Yeah.
of things to do, but please reach out to me if you want to know more or something. And I would love to get this recording as well, because I think
Yes.
I made a lot of sense. I haven't talked about the broad spectrum of all the things I do in this way before. So
Yes, we can definitely send it over to you.
Mm.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for making the time again.
Yeah,
I was
thank
also
you.
reaching out to Bertola. So I don't know, maybe you're a good person to ask. Do you think it makes sense that we also just spend a couple of minutes with him to show him some of the things that we've been working on and get his perspective? Or do you think you've covered most of what he would also say, and then he's too busy
he
for-
has a lot of more insights in the core weaving than I do. So I'll connect us in a LinkedIn chat, and I'll advocate for him him doing this.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I think he already replied to my request on LinkedIn, but I'll check again with him. And if he doesn't get back,
Make it a chat group, so we are
Yes.
both in the same channel. So, and
Great.
add your Sally and Chin here as well. So
Yeah,
something like that, and we can make a conversation about it, because me and Bertola is, of course, naturally curious about everything weaving. So.
cool. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Cool.
thank
We'll
you.
set it up.
Mm.
Amazing. If there's nothing else to say, I think I want to close with a big thank you and have.
So if you share the recording, I'll share that with Bertola as well,
Yes.
so he can watch that, because he'll do a lot of walk in nature, listening to things. So if he can listen to this, he will be more inclined to do a call with you as well. So.
Amazing. Even better. Even better.
Yeah.
We'll send it over as soon as it's
Yeah.
downloaded.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day, and let's keep in touch about this. I think there's a lot of things to be discovered, and a lot of work to be done in the weaving world. So yes, would love to stay in touch.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah.
And for your insights.
Great.
I'm here to help. So.
It's amazing. Thank you so much.
Have a nice day.
Yes. Speak
Same to
soon.
you.
Bye bye, Michael.
Bye.
Bye.